Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 124. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. 24 hours until the 2025 NFL Draft kicks off in Green Bay. The Pittsburgh Steelers should be on the clock come around 10:30, 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday night, assuming they stay at 21, which we'll talk about if they will or not. So, Dave, our last podcast before the draft, our final opportunity to share our last Steelers mock drafts, give our best predictions, and give our final thoughts. So speak now or forever hold your peace about the 2025 NFL Draft. How you doing, Dave?
Good morning. Happy Wednesday to you and the listeners. Another day closer to the 2025 NFL Draft. And I guess by Sunday, we'll have a new class to talk about once again and some undrafted free agents. Exciting time of year. Both of our final mock drafts have dropped now to just amazing thankfulness from all the readers. Just everybody's really just praising all of our selections. It's something
As they always do.
As they always do, something we have just never witnessed before. The skies are parting. No, that's obviously not the way it goes, but we do have some final mock drafts to talk about today. A little bit of kind of these late last minute news items starting to come in that usually drop every year. We'll kind of talk more outside of our mocks of maybe things we'd like to see happen or have gut feelings might happen outside of our mocks. And yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. Should be a fun show.
So let's just dive on in. My last Steelers predictive mock draft came out on Tuesday. Dave, yours dropped midnight for Wednesday morning, and let's just go through it. We'll compare each pick. We did not predict trades, and reminder, we both made this disclaimer, and even though it will sometimes still fall on deaf ears, this is what we think the team will do, not what we would personally do if Dave or I were Steelers general manager in that room making the decision. So just predicting based on all the Blues clues, based on team need, and just based on our own opinions of what Pittsburgh will actually do come Thursday night throughout the weekend. So round one, 21 overall, we have the same selection here in Derrick Harmon, the defensive lineman out of Oregon. Defensive line, certainly a major need for Pittsburgh. They have shown interest in Harmon. He certainly checks the boxes Pittsburgh needs. Will he be the pick? We'll have to see. We can discuss and debate that still, but both aligned on Harmon.
Yeah, are you surprised we're both aligned there? I'm not. Look, it comes down to, you're looking at, especially maybe a guy like Walter Nolan that could still be on the board, and they weren't at the pro day. They didn't bring him in for a pre-draft visit. I like Walter Nolan. I like Kenneth Grant as well too. And I got in an internal debate with myself about how one might be more, considered more nose tackle than the other one. I do, and I know you differ in this. We've talked a little bit about this. I think Kenneth Grant is better against the run than Derrick Harmon. I think you see it a little bit the other way there. Harmon more B gap over the tackle, whereas Grant more A gap, B gap kind of player. I would not be shocked if, I guess if Grant winds up being the pick, even, on the heels of Mike Tomlin and talking about kind of the dying animal of the true nose tackle, I think you could still get Grant out there in two down lineman situations. But it does call into wonder if you have Cam Hayward and Keanu Bent or Cam Hayward and a guy like let's say Kenneth Grant or Derrick Harmon out there. What's going to happen with Keanu Benton? I do kind of wonder about keeping Keanu Benton at in your base defense as the nose moving forward and the reliability on him specifically against the run. So all this is just to say that I had a bit of an internal debate within myself between Derrick Harmon and Kenneth Grant. I just leaned a little more into the fact that Harmon can seems to and has played a little bit more away from the center than Grant has. Overall, I think Harmon does have a little bit of a higher ceiling left on him, maybe than Grant does. Then you've got the whole Shadur Sanders and the quarterback element to think about within this, and especially over the course of the last couple of weeks where they brought in Sanders for a visit, and a lot of people thinking that he's going to fall down to 21, and the Steelers faced with the decision on whether or not to take him there. So there was that factor to deal with. But then you continue to roll all the way back to the things Art Rooney said back in January about we've got to do a better job of stopping the run up front, about the whole idea, the Andy Weidel mentality of build and really Omar Khan to that degree. We got to build through the trenches, and we've seen this team throw a lot of mud at the offensive line as of late. This team also hasn't dedicated first round pick to a defensive lineman since Cam Hayward many years ago. Cam Hayward obviously winding down his career. It might be time to think about that as well too. So a lot to chew on there. I'm not totally convinced Sanders, even if he was to fall to 21, would be the pick. I've obviously been wrong on this stuff before. If they have conviction and Sanders is their guy and he is there at 21, I don't see how you pass him up as an organization. But yeah, that's essentially where I'm at. I think it came down to three, maybe even four guys. If let's say Shadur Sanders, Kenneth Grant, and Walter Nolan were all off the board. Which way would you go? Would really throw a wrench in this thing.
Something poetic about, to me, drafting Derrick Harmon to be that Cam Hayward replacement. When they drafted Cam Hayward in 2011, that was a 2-year plan to replace the old guard, Brett Kiesel and Aaron Smith. Now, Derrick Harmon, of course, is going to play a whole lot sooner and play immediately, whereas Hayward sat his first 2 years. Just a different world we live in, a bigger need for Pittsburgh. It's just quarterback, as you said, is a wild card, and we have just no idea. And if you love the quarterback, you have to take the quarterback. It always trumps defensive line. But it is hard to see Pittsburgh, who did not invest significantly in defensive line in free agency. They made low-level signings. They brought back Loudermilk. They signed Aquale. They cut Ogunjobi. Do you really want to wait until the third round to address that whenever you had such issues stopping the run, when you have an aging Kim Hayward still playing great football, but 2 years left for him? Benton and Hayward is really all you have in terms of quality starters up front. Even Benton has some things to work on. He's not all the way there yet. And Harmon really is that build a Steeler defensive lineman. Just, you don't see those guys. We talk about it all the time, Dave. The first thing we look for when you and I start the draft process in January, we're our 6'5", 300-pound, long defensive ends that are built well. And Harmon is one of those dudes, basically 6'5", well over 300 pounds, 34 and 3/8 inch arms with good tape, can stop the run, can rush the passer, clean character, productive last year at Oregon. Power 5 came in, or Power 4, I should say, came in for a visit, checking all those boxes. Yes, D-line is deep. Yes, Pittsburgh could wait and still potentially find talent. But then it kind of feels like, Pittsburgh waiting on receiver last year, getting Roman Wilson in the third round. Yes, he got hurt, but you end up not getting any contributions there. You have that big hole at receiver. They can't afford that at defensive line this year. So We'll talk about some medical stuff with Harmon in a moment, but to me, Harmon, a lot of comparisons to Hayward. That wasn't my comparison, but I get it. And he just checks a lot of those boxes for a big
I
need for Pittsburgh.
I agree. How could you see this team if left with the choice of Harmon or Grant going the other way with Grant?
Yes, like you, I really struggled and wrestled and almost changed my mind. I had written out the whole blurb on Harmon, and I sat there and went, do I want to go back to Kenneth Grant? I really debated it. I'm just going to trust my first instinct here and stay with Derrick Harmon. Here is how I ranked the top four. My others considered, I had four names that I really did truly consider for 21 in this order, too. Derrick Harmon 1, Shadur Sanders 2, Kenneth Grant 3, and then Travion Henderson, the running back from Ohio State, 4. There's a sleeper potential, I think, with Henderson, the big playability, the clean character, the Ohio State connection, checking those boxes. Don't totally discount Henderson at 4. I also put Nick Eamon-Worry at 5. I think that's a little less likely, but I have talked about their interest in safety and in Eamon-Worry specifically quite a bit. So that's how I rank things. Again, Sanders, who knows? It's so much uncertainty about that. Certainly could be the pick, but I went Harmon ultimately, as you talked about Rooney saying they have to stop the run. This is the year to get that defensive lineman to stop the run.
Although the Blues clues don't line up and all, would you be on board if Walter Nolan fell and was the pick?
I need to probably think about it a little bit more. I get it, obviously, for the talent, for the upside, for the team need. It would just depend on some different variables, but I probably would want to dig back into Nolan's tape one more time and check that out before I give a thumbs up or thumbs down.
When it comes to Shadur Sanders, obviously we both didn't pick him, but we both I would imagine would not our mouse would not be agape if he was to pick. But I guess where I'm going with this is there part of you that hopes that he is on the board at 21 just to see what the what the Steelers, if indeed they would take him, if they try to bail out of the spot? Is there a part of you that just wants them to be forced with the decision there?
Well, I think it's always enlightening whenever you are in those situations, and it's never one of those unanswerable questions of would they have taken this guy
Right.
had he fallen. So yes, from that standpoint, just for our own knowledge of it and some clarity on what their true feelings were, absolutely.
All right. I don't know what else to add other than this. I like you wrestled quite a bit with the whole Kenneth Grant, Derrick Harmon thing. Now let's address kind of the latest. I think it started a couple of days ago with Brian Brodus long time, does a lot of work for the Dallas Cowboys, I think, right?
Hmm.
And kind of I guess nonchalantly out of the blue during one of the podcasts he was on, talked about medical concerns on Derrick Harmon, but he didn't. I don't think he went. I don't think he actually named body part or whatnot.
Right. He did not.
And then we have Mike Garafolo showed up in the last, I guess, 24 hours on a Arizona Cardinals podcast, and was asked about draft Twitter, and all of a sudden the Harmon, I guess rumors or buzz starting about health concerns, and his response was, "Oh yeah, best I can find it's a shoulder, but it's something that maybe would drop him down, towards the bottom half of the first round, and." If you have two players at the same position that you have the same grades on, you're going to go away from the medical. You're going to go with the more healthier player. It doesn't sound like it's a huge deal overall, but nonetheless, now you've got a national beat guy in Garofalo saying, "Oh yeah, it's a shoulder."
And how much of it is a concern will vary from team to team. Pittsburgh has been very generous with their medical evaluations. Remember, Troy Fautanu reportedly had knee issues, and Pittsburgh had no issue taking him. Same with Darnell Washington in 2023. Same with Peyton Wilson, who had clear injury history that was well known and well documented. Remember, Ian Rappaport saying that 22 teams had taken Peyton Wilson off their board because of medical concerns. Pittsburgh obviously did not. Same with Corey Trice, even though that was a 7th-round pick in 2023. So if there is a team that could potentially be more comfortable with the medical on, say, Derrick Harmon, it may be a Pittsburgh Steelers organization. Now, they could have that flag. They can vary, like I said, team to team, prospect to prospect, but I don't know if that's a deal breaker. And Garofalo, frankly, didn't even seem overly concerned by the injury. He noted it, but then kind of, as you said, talked about it as a tiebreaker situation. Maybe the team would lean, the other way if there was a clean prospect medically compared it to Derek Harmon. I will say in college, Harmon was durable. I can't find one piece of injury history on him. Wasn't mentioned in Dane Brugler's guide. I guess maybe the shoulder issue, whatever he's dealing with, I don't know if that's short term, a long term kind of a thing. Maybe that's why he didn't do much in the pre-jab process. He just ran the 40, and that was basically it. And he went through the on-field work. He didn't do things like the shuttle drills and didn't bench and that type of stuff. So it's always hard to say, but it is worth mentioning because it has picked up buzz in the last couple of days.
Yeah, and did we ever? Harmon didn't do much of anything at his pro day, right?
Correct. He certainly did not test. I don't believe he did basically anything at his pro day.
Okay. What was I gonna? Oh, you mentioned Travion Henderson. Throughout this thing, and after we go over our mocks, we're going to talk about kind of I guess some outside thoughts and things running through our head ahead of the draft and all. But when it comes down to those two Ohio State running backs in particular, I really think they like both of those guys. And I just look. I have talked a lot about how in my heart of hearts and gut, I think somehow they end up with either a second round or early third round pick. But it's mock drafts are messy enough and such a losing proposition as it is. I can't remember in a time in all these years that I've done this stuff in a final mock draft where I've attempted to predict, a trade, especially an early round one overall. But I would not be surprised if something like that happened, if they could find the right partner. The thing is, it gets so messy. We went through a lot of the scenarios of maybe potential teams trade. We obviously talked about Pickens and that probability, but it just gets so messy. And I've thought this in the past. Just go with the picks the team has and try to put people in rounds where you think they'll go and people that you think the Steelers like and go from there. But when it comes to those two Ohio State backs in particularly in Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson, I really think they would be on board in getting either of those two. The thing is, it's so hard to mock either one of those guys falling to the third round. If they stand pat, it would feel like they would have to get either a second round pick back or an early third round pick to have a choice or a chance to get either one of those two. However, I wonder, I brought this up to you the other day, how many running backs are going to go, in before 83 if everything stands pat the way it is. And is there a minute chance that one of those two, Travion Henderson and Quinshawn Judkins, falls to 83? And I think they would jump on him definitely if that were to happen. So I just wanted to throw that out, being as how you talked about Henderson, potentially being in consideration for you with that first round pick.
I think if either back has any chance to make it to 83, it's Judkins. I don't think Henderson has a chance at all. I think he's a first round guy. I don't know if he'll even be there at 21 when Pittsburgh picks. He could go 20 to Denver. That seems to be a popular thought right now. So, yeah, I think they like both Ohio State running backs. They will certainly draft a running back, but it's hard to map that out unless there is a trade down scenario in terms of getting a guy like Judkins maybe in the second round. You had asked me a podcast or two ago what was more likely, a George Pickens trade or a trade down in the first round. I said first round. You said Pickens. Is that still your thought? Because hearing from Omar Khan, hearing some of the buzz, and I know it's lying season, but I think there is a puncher's chance that Pittsburgh will trade down in the first round.
Look, I do as well too. And I'm hoping. Hey, we kind of talk about difference between what we think will happen and what we want will happen, and the differences between that. If if this team could trade down to more, several spots, and Kenneth Grant still be on the board, maybe you lose out on Harmon. Maybe Harmon falls because of this medical
Hmm.
thing like that. Uh Man, I would be more than on board to see that happen, for them to drop however many spots, 2, 3, 4, 7, whatever. And if they could still come out of that with either, let's say, Kenneth Grant or Derrick Harmon, and in the process pick up a second or an early third, absolutely sign me up. I you know and I somehow, some way, like, I don't know how it happens, but whether it's Pickens or not. Look, I mean, you've got all this Dallas Cowboy buzz that came out of Jerry Jones' mouth yesterday, saying we're working on maybe a couple of substantial trades, and they do need a wide receiver, you know,
Hmm.
and uh, I guess crazier things have happened there. Uh, I don't know which one's a higher probability overall, especially looking at the teams behind the Steelers. It'd be one thing if you saw a team 2 or 3 spots behind the Steelers that you thought, yeah, I could really see that team trading up and the Steelers going down 2 or 3. But when you get outside that 2 or 3 range, and you look at those teams behind them, especially in the first round, it does get a little messy trying to figure out which one might come up, and for what reason and for what player.
Well, I think Houston at 24 for a tackle, Kansas City at 31 for a tackle, and Buffalo at 30 for maybe Jahdae Barron if he falls. I saw that got reported out. Maybe there's interest there from Buffalo. So I think there could be opportunities, but you're right. You never know. And it's going to be probably more challenging this year than other seasons. But let me just ask it this way, because you had asked me about Pickens or a first round trade being more likely. Do you still believe it is more likely that George Pickens is traded than a first round move down is likely to occur? Just from the way that you were talking, sounded like maybe you had thought the other way. The first round trade is more likely to occur than
Just
Pickens.
just because I'm having a harder time than you are in trying to figure out who might come up in the first round, uh, I would probably lean towards Pickens being dealt.
Okay. Still on Pickens. Okay, that's
All
fair.
right.
I just didn't know if your mind had changed at all based on what Omar Khan had said, based on some of the buzz, and if you just had thought about it in a different way. But I get that, and I think Pittsburgh will get calls for George Pickens. Will they respond? Will they do anything? Again, my stance is it's got to take a really good offer. I'm open to it, but it's got to be you got to come correct. If you're going to give me an offer for George Pickens, it can't be this late third round pick 101. No, thank you. It's got to be a really good pick. Will teams want to do that and commit with the contract? All those obstacles to navigate. It's a fair question, but that's always been my stance, and that has not changed the day before draft day. So ultimately, on quarterback, the reason why you did not go Shador, you even have Jackson Dart and your others considered. What was the main reason for not going a quarterback and instead going Harmon at D line?
I'm not totally convinced Shadur falls all that way. And then number 2, I just in the back of my, and really, I struggle with this class, past Cam Ward. I still think Shadur's probably pound for pound the second best quarterback in this class. Uh, I just consider Dart, because if you're going to entertain the idea of quarterback, and they did bring Dart in for a visit, you know. And if I'm to properly rule out Walter Nolan, I needed 4 guys to fill into who I considered there, and I think I think Dart becomes one of those guys along with Sanders that at least you have to at least consider.
They certainly could take Sanders. We had that lengthy discussion, but I'll go back to what I said yesterday or Monday, whatever day it was. Do you take a Shador Sanders when Mike Tomlin has never seen this guy throw in person once in his life and make him your franchise guy of the future for the next 10 years? That's the hope. At least if you take a Shador Sanders or any quarterback in the first round, then well, I think Tomlin likes Shador Sanders. that's just a little hard for me to get there predicting wise. And
So
also,
wait, you're more on the fact part with me now that was the first time meeting him, and then he's never seen him throw.
well, it wasn't about the meeting. It was more about the not seeing him throw. And I made the point about Jackson Dart, although they did at least see Dart throw at the Senior Bowl and the Combine, but not going to the Ole Miss
Right.
workout. Would you take a Jackson Dart when you didn't go there and got to? I know it's a pro day workout and they're scripted like crazy, and we probably put too much stock into it, but just get up close and personal. Now I know Tomlin has seen Sanders on tape and all of that, but you talk to any coach and watching a quarterback live, the way the ball comes out of his hand is different than just watching it on tape. So it wasn't about not meeting Sanders, but just the catch-all, and it applies to Dart to some extent as well. Not seeing the guy throw in person, do you still make that guy be the guy? Now they could go the other way and say, let's get a little uncomfortable, and we leaned on the comfort of Kenny Pickett too much, and we thought that we knew everything about him, and that didn't serve us well. But that was another reason why ultimately I didn't go Sanders and went D-line instead with Derrick Harmon.
And once again, I'm hoping Sanders falls just to see if he's there, what the reaction would be.
Sure.
Second thing, my overarching thought still remains of regardless of, do I think Pickens is going to be traded? What's the more likelihood thing? Is I really, and I have not lost this feeling in several weeks now, is I think somehow they get another pick in the top 100 here. Are you more along the lines of going with my gut that somehow, some way, you talk about, you think that there's a higher probability of them going down than trading Pickens away, which is fine. But is your gut telling you now, just a day before the draft, that somehow, some way, this team's going to get another top 100 pick?
It's hard to say what the exact return will be, not knowing how far down they'll go. But I've certainly warmed up. I've come a lot closer to your idea that they will find a way to get some other draft capital, that there will be a first round trade down. Now, what do you get back? If it's only a spot or two, 3 spots, maybe it's only a fourth round pick. Who knows? But I like the odds of a first round trade down for Pittsburgh.
Okay.
What that brings back, it's hard to say.
Okay. What's my biggest red flag, I think, with Harmon is he's got to be able to finish more at the NFL level. The missed tackles, and he left a lot of plays, it feels like, on the field overall. He's got to finish plays better than he has. That missed tackle rate is kind of alarming overall for his NFL career. Would that be the biggest red flag you have on him?
It was one of the most noticeable things I talked about and stuck out when I watched his tape, and he was, I think he was the literal first prospect I profiled this offseason. I think it's actually Josh Carney that initially said his name, and I said, okay, I want to look into this guy, and said, kind of checking some of those initial size things. But that's an element of it. I don't know if that's number one concern I have with him. I think maybe just a little bit of stiffness and rigidity in his game is the bit of the concern. Can he bend through contact? Can he really? How athletic is he really beyond just he ran a good 40? But that's not the ultimate measure of a good defensive line prospect athleticism. That they're not running 40s in the NFL when the ball is snapped. So I just maybe worry a little bit about that hip flexibility and just kind of being a really good athlete to play at a high end at the NFL level.
I don't think he's definitely don't have the hips of a Stephon Tuitt when Stephon Tuitt was in his prime. But man, you watch that damn hoop drill over and over again.
But do you see that translate on tape? Is my
he's a good twister. I like how he does that. I think it's not to the. I don't know. You don't see that to the degree that you see in the hoop drill, but. How many guys do you see run that hoop drill as well as he did?
I wish he would have done the shuttle drill though.
Yeah, that's the other thing there. Would be nice to see him have a complete RAS profile for sure. And we talk time and time again about the combine and how these guys do less and less, especially if they're first round. And yeah, it would have been nice to see that something translate into some numbers when it comes to the shuttle and 3-cone.
Because Harmon only ran the 40 was the only thing he did testing wise. Who was the last Steelers first round pick to really have such incomplete testing and be their selection? I just checked Faton, who did a bunch of stuff at his pro day last year. think Broderick Jones did too. I mean, there's been moments, I think Hayward, I'm guessing, was probably limited way back when because of that injury he was coming off of. Heath Miller, I know we're going way, way back on that under the Colbert regime. So it has happened, but there is incomplete athletic data. And yeah, people can say, well, who cares about the vert? But I'm just looking at building an athletic profile to be able to judge him compared to peers based on predictive success of guys that have high RS scores typically correlate to just more NFL success in general. So there's still worthwhile information there, even if it is just, underwear testing. So you would have liked that, but I still like Harmon, obviously. I'm still a big fan of the guy, but I'm just talking about some of the potential drawbacks and counter arguments.
All right. Anything else to add on our first round picks here?
No, we're aligned. I don't know if that happens too often with our final mock drafts, Dave. I think we definitely were not aligned last year. I think you went with a
Frazier.
tackle. Oh, you
No.
went Frazier?
Yeah,
Okay.
I had Zach Frazier going in the first round last year.
Never wrong, just early. That's a Dave Bryan
And
motto
then
on
then
that.
I had Roman Wilson second round, I think.
There you go. Never wrong, just early. I had Graham Barton was my prediction last year, and that was ultimately obviously incorrect. So let's go to round 3. Trade down as possible. We neither of us predicting that in our mock drafts. We do not have alignment in our third round selection, 83 overall. Dave, you went Will Howard, the quarterback from Ohio State. I went Dylan Sampson, the running back from Tennessee. Let's start with you, Dave, and I'm not mad at this one. You guys know I'm a fan of Will Howard, 83 overall. I dig it. What are your thoughts on going quarterback with the second pick by Pittsburgh?
Yeah, it feels like because of the quarterback work that they've done this offseason, and if they were to pass on a quarterback in round 1 and they don't pick up a second or early third, I wrestled quite a bit with how far will Jalen Milroe fall. Uh, if you want to get into the more want category for myself personally, I am intrigued with the possibility of Jalen Milroe being a Pittsburgh Steeler, but not in the first round, maybe somehow in the second or early in the third, just because of mainly because of what the upside is with him, not what he is now. I mean, the dude's mobile is all get up. And he's got a very, very strong arm. If you could develop that guy more and the accuracy and the reading of the defenses and the decision making, for the amount of time that he's played so far, if you could refine and get him to what many perceive could be his higher ceiling, you might really have something there. But if I'm standing pat with the picks as is, I think other teams out there would feel the same way as I do. Can we get this guy in the second or the early third? And then thus he would be off the board. And then you're looking at what's the best of the rest when it comes to potential quarterbacks that could be there in either the third or the fourth. I wrestled. It came down to kind of wrestling between two quarterbacks here, Tyler Shuck and Will Howard. And there was that part in my head, Lewis Riddick, throughout a couple times through this pre-draft process, saying, keep an eye on Tyler Shuck and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then you've got all these other rumblings that, maybe Shuck goes a little bit earlier than people think. Some people trying to pigeonhole him, I think, into the bottom of the first round, even. And if he got out of there, how much farther would he fall? You're not hearing that same kind of stuff with Will Howard. I think you're kind of hearing third, fourth round with Will Howard. And when you look at the best of the rest quarterback situations that could potentially be there in the third, I like a lot of what Will Howard did. You sold me more on him than initially I was. And look, I get he was able to push the football down the field, and he's one of him and Tyler Shuck, I think, as far as completion percentage goes. And now look, he had a great supporting cast there, a great program to be able to do it in. I saw him make a lot of good throws in there. Does the ball come out the way you probably want it to on some of those deeper throws? No. There's a hole. Got a little bit on the smaller side of the hand situation there. He is more of an outside. He doesn't throw over the middle as much as some of like a Shadur Sanders and some of these other guys, and that might make Mike Tomlin happy.
Perfect Steeler.
Perfect Steeler doesn't prefers to stay away from the middle field, but he's not afraid to throw down the field. He is a good game manager, I feel, a distributor of the football. He will obviously enter the NFL as more of a backup, maybe more of a career backup with potential starting. You just got to. I think he's got a little bit of a ceiling left in him. He played a little bit under center, not that. Not too terribly much overall, though. But this really came down to Will Howard, Tyler Shuck, and which one is probably more likely to be on the board there. But if I had my druthers, what would probably excite me the most about the Steelers in the quarterback position is if something were to happen where they got a hold of Jalen Milroe, maybe in the second or early third round pick, just because of his upside being the most enticing, I think, of all the quarterbacks in this class.
And I agree. While I know quarterbacks are unpredictable, I would be pretty surprised if Shuck was there at 83. I really put the Saints at 40 as his floor, the lowest and latest that Shuck will be on the board for. A huge big Will Howard fan. You guys know that would probably be. I didn't do official quarterback rankings, but he would be maybe number 3. I think he'd be number 3 on my list. And I know that's a hot take, but that's where I would put him. So I get that. I also thought it was
Ben
interesting, Dave.
Roethlisberger likes him.
Yeah, he liked Jackson Dart and Will Howard. So there's good company we're keeping there. I also like that your inclusion of the Bill Parcells 7 things to look for on Will Howard, and he checked, I guess, most of those boxes. It sounded like.
Yeah, I think I originally wrote all 7, but I went back and double checked. I had him confused. He was not a full 3-year starter.
Yeah, because it was a little bit weird. He was actually worked kind of battle with Skylar Thompson, who's currently Steeler at Kansas State, right? And I think Thompson had gotten hurt, and then Howard came in, and so a little bit of weirdness there. But he has a lot of experience. That's fair to say.
Right. And the other look, the Bill Parr. I almost wonder how much in vogue with these kids staying in school with the NIL and all like that. How much more in vogue the old Bill Parcells 7 things to look for when it comes to college quarterbacks entering the NFL. And there are, however, I think several in this class that do check 6 of the 7 boxes. So I don't think it's that unique in the NIL world, but it was worth pointing out just the same that he did check 6 of the 7. Initially, like I said, I thought he checked all 7, but I went back and checked last night. And he wasn't a full 3-year starter. He was a 2-year starter overall, but he did start a lot of games in totality, major program. What's some of the other ones? Senior, graduated, completion percentage, 2-to-1 touchdowns to interceptions. So he did check. I like his mobility overall. I think in Arthur Smith, and be able to move him out of the pocket with what Arthur Smith kind of likes to do is fine. The Steelers. And it's hard to read much into it because of the program, but the Steelers obviously had a large contingent of people at the pro day. Arthur Smith was there as well too. I don't think Arth. We didn't spot Arth there, did we?
Correct. We did not see Tom Arth, the quarterbacks coach at the Ohio State Pro Day.
All right. But all that to say that I viewed him as if I'm standing pat on picks and not making trades, the best quarterback I think on the board at the time. And assuming this team's going to draft a quarterback in the first 2, maybe 3 days, that's how I settled on Will Howard.
And while this may be a little more reflective of the Kevin Colbert philosophy, Pittsburgh loves a winner. And Will Howard won. And he went on a great run, played his best football when the games counted the most. Watched that Oregon game, the second game, the playoff matchup, and he was fantastic, where they just blew the doors off of Oregon early and cruised to victory. You're right. I think he is more athletic than people give him credit for. I think he has something like 3 or 4 70-yard rushes in his career. He's not going to make you miss, but he's got size and straight line speed when he gets going. He runs, I compared him to Daniel Jones. He runs like Daniel Jones. A little awkward, a little clunky, but he can run in a line and you can it's functionally mobile with some ability to create when there's a runway in front of him. What would you say to those who say, Will Howard, he just had so much great talent at Ohio State. It was a really good offensive line. They got a couple first round picks there. They got Jeremiah Smith, the best receiver in football. They got Abuka is going to be a potential first round guy. He just looked good because he played with an all-star cast of characters.
Sure, that's a fair pushback. You can call him a bit of a distributor of the football to good talent. Yeah, but I mean, you better surround him by good talent in the NFL too if you want to see some of his upside.
And my thought is, I thought he still showed the similar traits that even at Kansas State. I went back and watched, for example, the Texas game in 2023, that great comeback and almost comeback they lost in overtime that Howard had. You still see the same traits. The tape wasn't as clean, but you still see the same type of a guy. And also, you watch even some of the great, plays, the big touchdowns Ohio State had. It's not like Jeremiah Smith was having to make these spectacular number one on SportsCenter's top 10 catches. They were dropping the bucket from Will Howard. And so this is a guy that obviously benefited from the talent, but he wasn't made just because of the talent. And I watched a guy that progressed. He had a tough start to the year at Ohio State. I really attribute that to a new system, new coaching staff, tough Michigan game. I think there was a concussion in there too, but he really played his best football, settled into that offense. He's smart. He's a good leader. He's touch accuracy. We talk so much about, and it's important, mobility and out of structure, but can you play from the pocket? Can you make throws from the pocket and be accurate consistently? I think Howard is. There is some things I don't like about him. The velocity on his throws isn't great. He's not a power thrower. You think for a guy of that size would be a more power type of thrower that could really drive the football over the middle. I don't see that with Howard.
He pushes it.
Yeah, but the deep ball accuracy and touch, the arm isn't bad. It just the real RPMs and zip over the middle on some of those tight window throws could be an issue. Maybe there are some mechanical things to clean up there, but obviously I like Will Howard. And if he was to pick, I'd have the rare exception of a non-first round quarterback where I sit there and say, okay, I'm good with that.
And I think Chip Kelly, who he played for, is a pretty demanding guy too, out of his quarterback. So I think that kind of helps him.
And just having NFL coaching, Chip Kelly, a former NFL coach, and quality coaching is good for the program, good for the projection. So I do like the pick. On your others considered, you did put a couple running backs in Dylan Sampson, DJ Giddens, and Devin Neal. I went Sampson with my pick at 83. If he is the pick, I'll really have to do another deep dive into his tape. I didn't love the tape and what I watched, but I didn't write the full formal report. But the more I learned about Dylan Sampson, I really came to love the person. Super high character. I think hearts and smarts is still important for Pittsburgh. And I think they're going to want to focus on speed, guys who are dynamic. And even though I didn't love Sampson's tape, you get this guy some open grass, he's going to take advantage of it. He's got the speed to turn the corner in the second level to hit the home run. And Pittsburgh will still, I think, adhere to their you better be productive and a good conference criteria for the running back position. Even though I think the size will matter less, they won't go for that big 230-pound plotter bruiser type. They want guys who succeeded at the college level. And Sampson was just dominant in the SEC last year, led the SEC in attempts and rushing yards and touchdowns. Big game to beat Alabama, just consistently productive. I think Pittsburgh will appreciate that. He showed he could be the workhorse back, even though Pittsburgh won't ask him to be that at the NFL level. He's a guy that can be big play. He's got to work on pass pro, got to work on, I think, cleaning up his vision. Wasn't a great receiver overall, but I think Pittsburgh will love the man, will love the ability, will love the big play component of Dylan Sampson. Brought him in for a pre-draft visit, one of 9 running backs to come in, so easy box to check there. They'll love that what he did against top-tier competition. All of those things lead me to picking Sampson over the other running backs at 83.
All right. He had a 5.2% 20-plus yard run explosive play percentage out of 422 career carries. He out of, if you want a hard number on that, looks like 22 runs overall. Out of 422 total carries, went for 20 yards or more. His 10-yard or more gains, 66 of those for a 15.6 percentage, and that kind of ranks right in about I don't have this sortable. I just have an image of this, but it looks to rate kind of right in the middle of however many 29 or 30 backs that I put on that list of looking at their explosive run rates.
Yeah, I eyeballed it too. It looked to be about average or a little bit above. My issue with Sampson was he would go quiet for a couple, for stretches of his game and then bust off that big run, which is important, but would you like maybe a little more consistency at the division? Ran into some blockers, but I'd have to again really kind of take that deep dive. Also, youth is on his side. I think he is literally the youngest player in the draft. I saw somebody collect and do the legwork from Dane Brugler's draft guide of ages of the youngest and the oldest players, and I think Sampson is literally the youngest, not turning 21 until I think September, and so he has that youth on his side. Has productivity and experience, but only 422 career carries. Wasn't the guy until 2024. So you have youth experience with relatively low mileage, hearts and smarts, the speed component of it. It all just makes sense to me.
What do you say about the 8.3/4 inch hands?
I don't know if hand size. I have to check back my look for study on that. I don't think fumbling was a huge problem, if any problem, for him in college. So if it wasn't an issue in the SEC, it probably wouldn't concern Pittsburgh for the NFL.
All right, I definitely see. Look, you don't bring in 9 running backs without a cause, right? So
Yeah.
they're taking one at some point, and more than likely within the first 3 or 4 rounds.
Speaking of running backs, let's go to round 4, number 123 overall. And Dave, this is where you slot in the running back. This is you taking RJ Harvey out of Central Florida. So explain why Harvey won out over the other running backs.
Explosive plays, and I see your youngest running back in the class, and I'm going to go with one of the older running backs in this class at 20. I think he turns 24 during draft weekend or coming up here pretty soon here. But man, if you want a guy if you truly want a playmaker that delivered the explosive plays in college, RJ Harvey is your guy. He had, when it comes to explosive, he was the most explosive of the group when it comes to both 10 plus yard runs at 7.4% and 20 plus yard runs, which was I just lost my place here.
I think he was
17.
first. On both.
Yeah. Where was it here? 21.1. A little more than once every 5 times he touched the football resulted in a run of 10 yards or more.
It's crazy. I mean, he was, I think, number one in both 10 plus yard runs and 20 plus yard runs in the study you did.
Right. I think particularly, more of a zone runner, better zone runner overall than maybe a gap scheme type of guy. The yards after contact could be better. It's not awful. The broken tackle element of his game could obviously be better. His pass protection at the NFL level has got to improve if he's going to see more extended work. And I think the pass protection issues, I think the yards after contact issue is kind of some of the reasons why you're going to see him fall 4th, 5th round type of guy. I think he is a top 10 running back in this class because of this. You're getting him because of the explosive play element. I think he was a team captain at UCF as well too. I think highly regarded in the character aspect there, but plain and simple, he along with your Dylan Sampson, he's a bit undersized at 5'8". In fact, I think they both are right along the same lines. I think he ran a better 40 than Dylan Sampson
Mhm.
did overall there. He is older, one of the older ones overall in this class, but you're getting this guy because you want a running back that you could throw out there on first and second down maybe and deliver you those 10-yard, 20-yard runs.
Agreed. If Pittsburgh is looking for the big plays, and they certainly are, Omar Khan flatly said early in the offseason, this offense needs playmakers, and they've been adding and marching towards that throughout. Harvey checks that box as well as anybody. I thought he ran tough, even though there's not a lot of power to his game. There's some contact balance. There's some leg drive to him, and you give this guy a crease hits there. I wondered is is the 4.4 reflective completely on tape? I thought maybe he ran a little bit slower on tape, got occasionally tracked down from behind a little more often than you would expect from a guy of his 40 time, that 4.4 flat. But certainly there's no denying how productive and the big plays he consistently made at the college level.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, look, there were a couple times where you thought maybe he shouldn't have maybe have been hawked down.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and maybe I'm thinking a little too much about this as we're prone to do, overthinking it right before the draft. I know that Central Florida's in the Big 12. They are technically Power 4, but when was the last time Pittsburgh took any running back, but especially in a relatively early selection on a running back from a program that wasn't one of like the major power programs?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And I just say that because I talk about, I think Pittsburgh wanting to see the best of the best. I have to see who Harvey had some of his best games against. He's not from D2. I understand he's at a FBS school and a pretty well regarded one. But I think about, okay, Najee Harris from Alabama, Benny Snell from Kentucky, Le'Veon Bell from Michigan State, James Conner from Pitt. The list goes. Rashard Mendenhall from Illinois, which isn't the most powerhouse football school. I don't know what they were back in 2008, where they stacked up, but that was just kind of one thought in my head of maybe not Harvey just because they would maybe prefer a Dylan Sampson who went against the SEC every single week.
Sure. In other words, quality of competition and all like that. Yeah. Was he the best was he bettered by not having to play the Ohio States or the
Mhm.
Michigans or the Floridas or the Alabamas and all that? It's a fair pushback, yes. But they did bring him in for a visit, so
Sure.
there is that level and what uh I never found did what was he part was he was part of the Big 12 pro day, right? Or no?
I'd have to look if I'm sure he was. It's just such a mess trying to figure out
Right.
who all participated. There's a list of participants I can pull up here if you want, but I'm sure he was there, yes.
Or was Central Florida's pro day separate or no?
I don't think it was separate. Yeah, it's why I hate the Big 12 Pro Day. I
Yeah.
wish they would get rid of it. I can try to look here because I know that they had
I
a packet.
I see where you're coming from overall, and it would be something worth writing about if he winds up being the pick because of not being, say, a Power 4 guy.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
I wanna say
or you know what I'm saying, though,
yeah, I mean, he was Power 4.
a major college program, I guess.
Right, and I'm not trying to disrespect UCF, and I'm I'm nitpicking here, but I'm just trying to have a tiebreaker with 9 running backs to look at and say, "Who am I gonna pick between Harvey and Giddens and Sampson and Tootin and all these kinda names here?" Now, Harvey actually had a 200-yard game against Oklahoma State in 2023, so there is tape of him playing against good competition there, but it's just kinda one of those thoughts I had. I'm just X'd out of my, uh, Big 12 Pro Day attendance list. Who all from Central Florida? It's such a mess. I'm not seeing him listed, but I don't know for 100%, I'm not even sure if I'm looking in the right place or not, to be honest with you, but
Okay.
I don't see his name listed. I don't know, but he was at the combine, so at the very least, then we
Alright,
have that to look at.
I obviously considered a couple other running backs there, Tootin, if he were to fall, Devin Neal. I looked at cornerback Bill Howell Cone, who was close to checking a lot of boxes in your study. And if you want to double dip in that spot, could Jamari Caldwell out of Oregon? If you even if you didn't double dip, let's say you did go, you did somehow wait until the fourth round for a defensive lineman. Could a Jamari Caldwell be on the board at that time? And it wouldn't hurt my feelings if they did double dip with a couple Oregon guys there.
Sure, get the Bash brothers of the Oregon transfer kids and Harmon and Caldwell. Last thing on Harvey, too, and I'm not trying to beat up your pick. I like the pick, but the fumbles was another concern. Was it 6 fumbles you have written here last 2 seasons on Harvey? And so that's one other consideration.
Right, and he only dabbled some as a kickoff returner in college, and if he's, because of his size and all like that, you're probably not going to get him on any special teams unless he's able to return some kickoffs.
Right, but I think he would certainly be in the mix for kick returns, I'm sure, off the jump to see what he could do there, and there is going to be additional value. My pick at number 123, round 4, and spoiler alert, we both have this name somewhere in our mock drafts. I knew we were both going to do this. Dante Thornton, the receiver out of Tennessee. Just if you talk about the non-visits, because the visits to connect them pretty easy to make that case. If you want to talk about maybe the most obvious non-first round, non-visitor that you could put in a Pittsburgh Steelers mock draft, it might be Dante Thornton, who is that height, weight, speed, maven, little Martavis Bryant vibes, Zach Azani at his pro day, big potential, some risk, really raw type of receiver, has to really work on his game. The volume isn't there, only 65 career receptions, 26 at Tennessee. But Dave, you know this as well as I do. When Thornton hit, he hit big. It was boom bust for him. Go balls, slants, glance routes. This was his game. And Pittsburgh looking for those big play receivers, those rare dynamic types downfield. He ran a 4.3 flat at the combine. There's projection here. He is not ready out of the box, but wouldn't have to be. Assuming George Pickens stays, you have Pickens and Metcalf and Austin and Roman Wilson and Freiermuth and a run-heavy offense. Thornton would not be counted on in a meaningful way out of the gate. It's a big project, but there's big-time upside with Dante Thornton.
Yeah, and it was easy to tell that I kind of was leaning towards him throughout this process, right?
Yes, for both of us probably.
And look, Zach Azani showing up at his pro day and putting him through some drills cannot be ignored. He was selected to the East-West Shrine Bowl as well. That can't be ignored. The Steelers like those all-star kids, especially in the second half. I pushed him down to the 5th round because of the rawness to him, because of there were a lot. I went to a couple of message boards, people, and even some Tennessee fans were thinking, why isn't this guy getting either more playing time? There were some situations where why isn't he on the field more even? They were kind of wondering because of what he was delivering and always seemed to be running open. He is not a refined route runner. His route tree was very limited at Tennessee. He comes out of college with, as you mentioned, 65 receptions, 1,426 yards, 10 touchdowns, had just 94 total targets in those four seasons. 26, nearly almost half of his receptions came in 2024. He did lead FBS with 25.4 yards per catch for whatever that's worth. On the pass attempts his way, more than 20 yards or more in 2024. He caught 7 of 10 of those targets. He also did have 7 total drops. He is a willing and able run blocker. And he better be for the size that he has. He wasn't a huge special team. He is a one-trick pony. He exits college as a you go deep guy. He's going to need. He might not, if the Steelers were to draft him or whatever team drafts him, depending on the depth chart, he might be without a helmet for the first half of the season here. You got to develop this guy. You got to refine his route running. You got to refine his route tree. Just a super raw player with upside, height, weight, speed guy.
Big time ceiling on Dante Thornton, no question about that. So that was your pick in the 5th round. That was my pick in the 4th round. I wonder if some team will take him in the 4th because of the weaker receiver class and because you bet on traits, the upside and potential with a Dante Thornton. But the blocking's important too. He's not just, as a receiver, he's to go deep guy, but he does block. He will do the dirty work, and that's important to Arthur Smith in the system. I just pulled up the numbers because I hadn't looked at them directly it is scary how similar his production was to Martavis Bryant in college. Now, Bryant was only, I think, in college for 3 years and Thornton 4, but Thornton had 65 career receptions for 1,426 yards. That's an average of 21.9 yards per reception in 10 touchdowns. Martavis Bryant, 61 career receptions, 1,354 yards, 22.2 yard average, and 13 touchdowns in his college career. So my comparison officially was Marquez Valdez-Scantling with Thornton, not to Bryant. I don't know if he's quite as fluid as Bryant was. Maybe not quite as maybe a little bit stiffer than Bryant was, but you can certainly see those vibes in their game.
Yeah, Martavis ran like an antelope, man. That guy was smooth once he opened up, and I don't think Thornton's as smooth.
I think when he opens up is whenever he reminds me of Bryant the most, to be honest with you. I think Bryant was just a little more flexible on some of the underneath type stuff, some of the change of direction type stuff. But Thornton, that second gear he showed mid route downfield, you just don't see too often with any receiver. Big guy, small guy. I see it with Thornton, and that's really, really attractive.
I'm just he gets open. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He down deep. I don't view him as smooth uh of a gate. Martavis, man, he could have been so good in this league. But I don't view him as being moving as clean as that.
Okay. Yeah, I see I think we're on the same page. Other issues with Thornton, too many drops on limited volume. There were a couple of drops that he could have probably done better on securing the football. Also, some nagging injuries. Talk about, okay, one reason why he wasn't on the field as often. There were just a bunch of nothing like major, but a bunch of nagging stuff in 2023. I think maybe something in 2024. Always kind of playing hurt, and that's one other issue with this game.
I do wonder he wasn't a huge special teams asset in college outside of some kickoff and punt returns. Might Danny, if they were to draft him, do you see how he could function maybe as a gunner?
I think you take a look. I'm not super confident it's going to stick, but you put him in those lines in camp for sure.
All right.
Your others considered here briefly, since round 5 you had Dante Thornton. We don't have to go over the pick again, but you had Hunter Wohler, Baron Sorrell, BJ Adams, and Isaac Tesla. Any thoughts on those guys? Anyone maybe you liked out of those others considered?
I mean, I like Hunter Wohler a lot. If you're gonna wait and go safety in that spot, and he's still on the board, that wouldn't surprise me. Baron Sorrell is a very intriguing guy. Really fits what the Steelers, I think, look for as far as an outside linebacker prospect goes. I think can help on special teams. If you're looking at later round, day 3, number 4 outside linebackers with some upside in this class, I think Baron Sorrell definitely fits. I think BJ Adams was on your list of guys that just missed by a box or two as far as corners go, and Tesla is another one of those kind of height, weight, speed guys.
Yeah, very similar to Thornton, who's gotten a lot of buzz for that big play, big body, freak athlete type. I like both those Razorback receivers of Andrew Armstrong and Tesla. I really like Wohler too. I could see him being a Steeler. They love drafting their Badgers defensively. He's smart. I think he can cover. I like this game across the board outside of just lacking pure foot speed. Ran 4.57. You watch him try to track down Jalen Milroe against Alabama. Had a tough time doing that, but I love this game. Otherwise, they can cover at a pretty good level too, in more tight end, box type of stuff. Not playing post safety, but playing close line of scrimmage. So I really did like Hunter Wohler. I think Craig Woodson from Cal are the two safeties I'd watch for on day 3.
All right.
All right, for my 5th round pick, I will just go through it here relatively quickly. Quinn Ewers, I finally go quarterback. It's really hard, Dave, to think Pittsburgh will not take a quarterback in this year's draft. You had Will Howard in the 3rd. I went Quinn Ewers in the 5th. He could slip down a little bit just from some of the injury concerns, not coming off his best season. But Pittsburgh, like I said earlier, they love a winner. When Ewers got there the year before, Texas was 5-7. Ewers went 27-9 for the Longhorns, won 12 games in 2023, 13 in 2024. Having Tomlin Kahn attend at least the Pro Day Eve, it sounds like they were there for the dinners. They confirmed they were there at Texas for the night before, if not the workout itself. So Ewers was once viewed as a first-round guy, has fallen off, obviously will not be a first-round guy this year. Would I love this personally? No, I wouldn't. But this is a what I think Pittsburgh will do, not a what Alex Kozora would do type of study. I think Pittsburgh will want a quarterback to have a rookie under contract for 4 years. And then you go into 2026, and at least you sit there and say, we have Rudolph under contract, we have the rookie under contract. We're not completely turning over our quarterback room yet again. May not have our starter on the roster, but at the very least, you at least have some stability, some continuity. Don't have to focus on rebuilding the entire room and can just focus on getting a number one starter.
Was he a 3-year starter? I think he was, wasn't he?
Let's see. I believe 22, 23, 24. Yes. He had some injuries. He had the oblique injury in 2024. He tried to play through it. But he was, it should be a 3-year starter. He went 27-9. So what is that on 35 or, bad math, 36 career starts.
But he was a 4-year junior, right? See, I don't know how they term all that 4-year.
Now he got there in 2022. No, okay, because he was at Ohio State in 2021. He transferred in. He didn't play really at Ohio State. So yeah, 4-year guy.
All right, started 30 games, win 23 games. Believe he did 2-to-1 touchdown to touchdown to interception ratio, 68-24. Completed at least 60% of passes thrown. His career completion percent, which was 64.9. So he might have checked all 7 boxes, depending on what you want to think about the whole 4th-year junior thing.
All right, there you go. Round number 6 at 185. You went Jordan Hancock, the defensive back out of Ohio State. Name we have not talked about a whole lot in this pre-draft process, so I appreciate a new name coming into the fold. Why Jordan Hancock?
Yeah, wasn't he one of the guys that I don't know, who was it? Sim Football or one of our regular emailers, I think, kept asking about him, and I finally got around to looking at him overall. This team could use both a cornerback and a safety in this draft, right? And if they only go 6 picks in total, why not get one later in a draft that could maybe do a little bit of both? I view him as a jack of several positions, but a master of none of them. Played nickel, played outside, played free safety, played down in the box. He moved around quite a bit overall. Got a very strong RAS if you look at him as a corner. Even if you switch his position over to free safety, comes in as a nice RAS score too. Logged a lot of special teams time at Ohio State, comes from a big program such as Ohio State, kind of seasoned overall. He was invited to the Senior Bowl, but turned down the invitation due to Ohio State's long playoff run. So there was enough interest that, hey, let's get this guy to the one, primary all-star game there. Despite all of his measurables and his position flexibility, on tape, looked stiff. I think overall, you don't really see those testing numbers. They're kind of muted on tape overall. He is a physical and competitive player, willing tackler. I think that even improved as throughout his college career. Needs to get a little bit better in coverage overall. The production's not eye-popping. Most of his stuff came in the final 2 seasons. He did start 22 games at Ohio State. If you're looking at a later round defensive back that's versatile, that can help on special teams, that might have a tiny bit of upside on him, why not?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, where do you think you would primarily play if you're trying to project out first crack at the NFL?
I think you get a look at him maybe at some slot in at the NFL. Maybe big nickel type stuff and all like that. He's not going to come in and compete or push anybody for jobs, I don't think. I think the big thing is how smart is he, how position flexible can he be, and how much can he help you on special teams initially.
Did you say, I might have missed it, I apologize. Did you say what his special teams background was, if he had a resume there?
Yeah, fairly decent. Logged some special team that I can pull up specifically, I guess,
Yeah,
here.
just kind of was it kick coverage? Was it just field goal rush team? Sometimes the weight of those snaps can be a little bit different.
Let's see here. Let me switch views here to snaps by position and go to special teams. Kick coverage last year 29, 1 on punt return, 11 on field goal extra team block. 2023, 31 on punt return, 3 on kick return, 19 on kick block. 2022, where is it down here? 11 punt return and 2 on field goal extra team block. So he's got a little
Okay, a
bit of
little bit.
special teams in there.
Okay, so certainly would be asked to cut his teeth there as a 6th round pick. So that certainly seems capable of doing it. So I do like the selection. Talked about adding some slot competition, the need to improve things there. So I like the pick. I like kind of the out of the box name there. To be honest with you.
All right.
All right, my 6th round pick, 185 overall, went Carson Bruner, the inside linebacker from Washington. Name should sound familiar. His father, Mark Bruner, former Steelers 1st round pick, tight end, and current Steelers area scout. And so I know inside linebacker is not a major need, but day 3 in a weaker draft class, looking for talent, guys who can make your roster, impact your team. Bruner can do that. He's athletic. He ran 4.58 at the combine. He's productive. 100 tackles, 3 interceptions, 1 forced fumble last season. Good RAS. And listen, Pittsburgh keeps 5 inside backers, can compete with Mark Robinson. Cole Holcomb's stat is he's not etched in stone to make this team with that knee injury, not playing since November of 2023. Pittsburgh loves the bloodlines. They're going to know him as well as any team. Just feels like it makes too much sense.
And for that very reason, I have him pushed down around a little bit light in the pants, 227 pounds. Logged just over 300 total tackles in college. And for a guy that was a 1-year starter, that's a lot of tackles there. Straight line downhill player, smart, not great in coverage, even though he did register 5 interceptions to go along with 14 passes defended. I think he tries to make up for that lack of athleticism, change of direction by outthinking, diagnosing fairly well and all. Was a captain at Washington 2024. Obviously got the link to Mark Bruner there. This is a guy that can come in, probably easily make you let go of a Mark Robinson, be a core 4-team special teams player. Tyler Matakavis essentially filled that role, I think, for the Steelers in 2024, in addition to the time previously spent with the Steelers before he ran off to Buffalo there. This just makes, from the dot connection, the nepotism, baby, whatever you want to call it. Steelers love special teams. This makes too much sense here.
And I just pulled up his special teams numbers. I don't have the complete total, but hundreds of special team snaps. Even last year he was doing it, but in 2023, 253 special team snaps. Only 4 of those came on the field goal rush team. And so 249 coming on kick coverage and punt coverage and kick return and punt return. He had 99 on kick coverage alone in 2023, did that throughout his career. So that's a guy that can certainly raise the floor on special teams. And remember, Pittsburgh special teams, their coverage unit really waned down the stretch last year as part of that 5-game losing streak. We focused so much, rightfully so, on the offense not scoring, the defense struggling to communicate, the run defense getting torn up, but they had some issues covering kicks and punts too. Field position battle was lost, and so Bruner can hopefully help there as well.
After the Miles Killebrew career ends in Pittsburgh, you could really see this guy becoming the special teams captain,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And so that was your 7th round pick at 229 overall. So we're aligned on the player, just slight difference on the round. But at that point, 6th, 7th round, we're 6 of one, half dozen the other.
Okay.
And then for me and my final selection at 229 overall, I went Donovan McMillan, the strong safety out of Pitt.
Like him.
Can say he came in for a visit. He walked across the facility to visit with Pittsburgh as a local prospect. He's a Pittsburgh native, went to Peters Township, big-time recruit coming out of high school, went to Florida for 2 years, was a backup there, transferred back, came back home, and started for the Panthers the past 2 seasons. Tackle machine, over 100 tackles in his 2 seasons with Pittsburgh. He's a good, reliable open field tackler, a solid hitter overall, just to me, a classic box safety whose tape translates well on special teams. Not great in man coverage. It's not going to be his game. Really, to me, this is kind of, what you mentioned, the next, hopefully, Miles Killebrew. That is McMillan to me in Pittsburgh. They love their RES guys in the 7th round. They love their RES guys in general, but especially 7th round under Omar Khan, Ryan Watts, Spencer Anderson were well above 9 in their RES. McMillan came in at, what was he, 9.20 was his RAS at 6.015, 203 pounds, ran 4.46 at his Pitt Pro Day. So again, kind of a layup here, not stretching my neck out too much, but local connection, good tape, good player, high character. He's the pick.
I can see that, and for some reason, if he should go undrafted, wouldn't be far for him to go as an undrafted free agent.
That's for sure, right at home. Also, a standout high school wrestler, and Pittsburgh seems to love
Oh,
their wrestlers, Zach Frazier and Keanu Benton and the like. So McMillan is the selection.
all right. All right. I definitely see where your head was at. He was one of the guys that I considered there, along with Johnny Walker Jr., who I think probably winds up maybe going undrafted. CJ Dupre, and if the Steelers wanted to go tight end later, maybe a Gavin Bartholomew if he's still on the board.
Dave, I'll get ahead of the question you always like to ask me whenever you hit the submit and schedule button. What was the one thing you were sitting there going, maybe I could have changed this? What was kind of your one quote unquote regret from this last mock?
Outside of not including a trade, uh, just wrestling. More than anything, I think kind of wrestling with the Derrick Harmon, Kenneth Grant thing. And I mean, I'm not in love with Will Howard, you know. But could I have fit, I just didn't have the balls to think that Milroe or Shuck would last that long.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that. I think Shuck for sure is not going to last that long. Milrose maybe more of a wild card, but I don't think he'll get to 83. For me, I was debating.
Harvey's age gave me pause.
Okay.
In the 4th round as well too. So, if you want to talk about regrets,
Yeah.
I've had a few.
Who
All right.
sings that? Is that
Elvis? My
that
way.
Elvis?
Well, Frank Sinatra originally.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounded Sinatra in my head. For me, certainly first round, just all over the map. Harmon versus Grant versus quarterback wild card, just completely. Who knows what's gonna happen there? And then I just Quinn Ewers for me in the 5th round just felt like I was maybe kind of shoehorning a quarterback in for the sake of one. It just again, it's hard to think they're not gonna take a quarterback at some point. And so that's kind of what it came down to. Like, what does Quinn Ewers in the 5th round really do for you as a franchise, other than just give you that rookie under contract for 4 years? I would not love that pick if that actually happens, other than me being right about the pick, which I will love very much. But yeah, just don't know if that one really kind of fit into what makes sense for Pittsburgh in terms of what is effective and good for them.
All right, let's give the people some of kind of like what we would want them to do. Maybe kind of an ideal scenario, kind of rough draft, rough map of a rough draft, if you will. I think I'm on board. I think we're both on board with them somehow picking up a 2nd or a 3rd round pick. In other words, another pick within the top 100. However, they need to get that done. If that means moving down in the 1st, so be it. And maybe moving down, and if you missed, either get Harmon or Grant in that situation. Fantastic in my eyes there, because you solve a position of need. You help maybe strengthen that run defense there, and if you picked up a 2nd or a 3rd round, I think one of the 2 Ohio State running backs makes a lot of sense. Or if you could get a Jalen Milroe in the building in either the 2nd or early 3rd, I really think that would kind of be ideal. Now, obviously, if you go quarterback in the 2nd round and you weren't able to get one of those Ohio State kids, you kind of wonder what you would do in the 3rd round there. Oh, tell the people about going out and seeing the Notre Dame kid.
Yeah, no, that was on my list I wanted to talk about after our mock draft. Yeah, Pittsburgh, and this was very last second stuff here. Cornerback Benjamin Morrison, who pound for pound, when healthy, might be the number one cornerback in this entire class day, but he's had hip issues, he's had a bunch of injury stuff, worked out literally Monday, like days before the NFL draft, and Pittsburgh took notice. This was out in Arizona, too. Morrison's from Arizona. I think something to do with Larry Fitzgerald, his high school, too. But either way, Pittsburgh sent defensive coordinator Terrell Austin, senior scout Kelvin Fisher, and Blesto scout Matt McCrate to watch Morrison's workout. Now, he did not run. Morrison did. He went through drills. He came in at 191 pounds, but certainly notable Pittsburgh wanting to get that last second look at Benjamin Morrison once he was cleared to work out.
All right. Is he a guy that could potentially be there early in the third if the Steelers were to somehow pick up, I don't know, let's say a top 10 third round pick?
Well, I mean, even at 83, if he's going to be there at 72, then you can make the case he'd be there at 83. I don't know. It just depends on the medicals. I mean, he's all over the map. I mean, again, talent wise, he's a first round talent. It's just, what do you trust the health? I would guess some team will take the chance on Morrison before the third round. I had him in my 7 round mock draft going number 49 overall, still inside the top 50, but it's a true wild card just based on where teams think he is health wise, both not just short term, but really the long term health. A quarterback with hip issues is a scary word, and I know teams have tried to take health risks on corners before. Remember Caleb Farley out of Tennessee with those back problems, and he never did anything because of the injury. So there is a real concern about longevity, I'm sure, with Benjamin Morrison.
Am I on the track with kind of what you would view as kind of maybe a more ideal scenario, either moving down or somehow acquiring, in other words, still getting the defensive lineman in the first, picking up a second or a third, either one of the two Ohio State running backs, maybe if you can fit in a Jalen Milroe in there somehow. How on board would that be? Would you be with the kind of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm generally team trade down, and so I'm certainly open to that, especially in a year like this where you only have the 6 picks and that long gap between 21 and 83, 2 picks in the top 120 is not common for Pittsburgh. I'm going to write about this in the morning because we do get asked about this all the time. Alex, what would you do? And I've tried to indulge that to some degree a little bit each year. You know, I felt like in the past I've gotten some things correct. I know I was team Creed Humphrey in 2021 over Najee Harris, even though we all knew Harris was going to be the selection. Here's what I would do hypothetically, and this is just kind of stretching out the hope here a little bit. Trade down. I know it's easier said than done. I'm not trying to wave a magic wand here, but I think if you really want to, I think somebody's willing to come up, whatever it's worth. Diana Rossini's believing that Houston is looking to come up in the draft. They're sitting at 25 right now. Pittsburgh at 21. Houston has a pair of third rounders at 79 and 89. Could you get a deal? My weekend article projected a deal with Houston where Pittsburgh gave up 21 and 156 and got back 25 and 89. So I know you're not getting additional capital. You still only have 6 picks, but you're getting a top 100 selection there. What I would do, I'm not going to try to map out the whole draft, but in the first round, I would try to trade down and get Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. I don't think the difference between Harmon and Williams is all that great, or Grant and Williams is all that significant from a grade standpoint. Now, Williams is not the athlete Kenneth Grant is. He won't be probably the pass rusher he is, but you just want really rock solid run defense. I think Tyleik Williams might be the best run defending defensive tackle in the entire draft, even better than Mason Graham, Harmon, Grant, the whole lot of them. 20, still 21, Ohio State guy, good production. You can trade down, get a rock solid run defender. I think he can offer something against the pass. There's going to be some questions about, overall, sub package value, but he's still in your nickel defense. You better be able to stop the run out of your 2-4-5 nickel. So trade down, get Tyleik Williams, get a pick. What do you do with that from there? Who knows? I won't map that out, but that would be my ideal world.
All right, and you did kind of hint more about him early in our pre-draft conversations. It was kind of evident that you were a fan of his.
Yeah, I put a first round grade on Tyleik Williams, and I think there is some pass rush value, like 3 to 4 sack a year kind of a guy potential. My comp was Dalvin Tomlinson on Williams. So that's kind of what I would like to do if I could really
All
map
right.
things out.
Well, don't leave me wanting for more. I kind of mapped out, look, you get past the third round and all like that. It becomes a lot messier, obviously, and especially with this class, what you'd like to see them do. But in that scenario that you just laid out, what are you doing in say per se the second if you got a pick, or the third if you picked up a third?
Yeah, let's assume you get a third somehow. I won't project a second and a move down like that. I mean, the positions probably wouldn't change. The names may change. You're looking running back, you're looking receiver, and you just try to get the best players at those positions who are there.
Throw me some
So,
names. Throw the people out some names.
I mean, a running back.
What do you think about the possibility of this team somehow fitting in Jalen Milroe in this, and or one of the two Ohio State running backs?
I mean, with me on Judd, I mean, I think Henderson's first round. I don't think
Okay.
unless you're getting Henderson in the first round, I don't think you're not going to get it unless you're getting a top 40 pick. But I think Henderson's a first round kind of a guy. Milroe, I don't know where he's going to go. I wouldn't love Milroe in the top 2 days, to be honest with you, just me personally. So that's not something I'm really looking to do in this year's draft.
All right, second or
Judd
third then. If he's staring you there at 83 and you don't have a quarterback.
Milroe,
Yeah.
I don't view him as that's not my
Okay.
grade on him. So yeah, I would pass. Now on Judkins, the other Ohio State running back, there'd be some interest there. If I can get more of the Judkins at Ole Miss in 2023 than the Ohio State version in 2024, who was heavier and bulkier, not as explosive, then I'd be more interested in that. I'm trying to think about, because I don't love this receiver class. Can Ayamanor fall a little bit? Trying to look at some names there that I would like. I think Trey Harris will be gone by then.
Is Noel getting over drafted? I mean, is he a guy that's going to fall into the third, or is he going to come off the board because of his class?
I mean, I think he's probably a third round guy. It's different flavor, just one team to take him. I mean, I could see it. I didn't come away loving Jalen Noel, but again, I don't have perfect map out in terms of the names, but
What about
Jalen Royals,
Higgins?
I liked him. I think Higgins will be gone. I think he's going to be probably a second round kind of a guy.
All right.
So that's the first part though, would be me moving down, getting one of the, even an Alfred Collins from Texas. I know there's also been some reported medical on him. He had a more obvious injury in the pre-draft process. I don't know the status of that, but I don't, this D-line class is deep. And so I don't see the gap between a Harmon and a Collins and Tyreek Williams being significant. If it's a trade down opportunity, I'm not married to Derrick Harmon no matter what.
What do you think about all the what Jerry Jones said? Do you read much into that?
It's performative art. Jerry knows what he's doing. I mean, he's trying to get some headlines out there. Who the heck knows? So that's just Jerry being Jerry.
All right. What else do we have to talk about? Are we leaving some stuff on the table here?
Yeah, there were a couple things. Let's see what I'll do. I want to two things here. Give me some curveball. We've talked a lot about the conventional wisdom of the draft, and it never goes the way exactly we think it's going to go. Last year we knew offensive line early, but nobody thought they would take 3 offensive linemen in the top 4 rounds. Peyton Wilson was not a wild card. We knew they were taking inside linebacker based on their pre-draft movements, but you didn't necessarily know it'd be Peyton Wilson. Give me some names. Who are the curveballs that aren't talking? Not the Harmons, not the Grants, not the quarterbacks. Who are some names to mention that may be under the radar selections for Pittsburgh earlier in the draft?
Yeah, it would have to get away from the Blues Clues, but what if Walter Nolan falls? Or even if you traded down and he fell a little bit further? That thoughts run through my mind. Are we ripping up some of the Blues Clues stuff after this year? I wonder what the league thinks about Matthew Golden. I have a feeling he's going to be gone. What if Nick Manwari is staring you in the face at that situation? That's another one. I worry that Marion Hampton might be pushed up a little bit too high. What if he's there? They brought him in for a visit. Might that be hard for them to turn down there? I think you hit on a good one. If they trade down about Tyreek Williams, that would probably send some shock waves through the fan base a little bit. It feels like the top 15s, whatever order you want to put them in this draft's going to come to fruition. So I don't see anybody hugely dropping down that way. I would be absolutely shocked if the Steelers went offensive line in the first round. Jahdae Barron out of Texas would make an interesting conversation should he wind up being there on the board and wind up being the pick. And we're only talking first round, though. I suppose the whole Travion Henderson thing, I don't think you can completely rule it out, as you pointed out.
I'm higher on the idea than you are, it
Yeah,
sounds like there.
yeah. But I think those are some other names to
Okay.
throw out there other than the Grants and the Harmons and the Shadur Sanders stuff. Kind of moving off the cuff type stuff.
Yeah, first round, I mean, we've covered it so much, there probably isn't a lot else to say that we haven't talked about already, but Henderson, Eman Worry, Malachi Starks from Georgia, Terrell Austin put him through his workout just to kind of throw some different names out there. But even curveballs, maybe a little bit later in the draft, third round. I don't think he'll fall. I've touted. I think he'll go earlier than projected, and what some people think. And I know this. You talk about curveballs. Charles Grant from William and Mary, the left tackle there. I think he's a good scheme fit. Isaac Williams went to his pro day. Doesn't hurt. He went to Mike Tomlin's alma mater. They're not drafting him because of that, but maybe somebody knows somebody that can give some inside information there. This, is how much trust do you really have in Broderick Jones right now? And in theory, maybe Grant could kick inside the guard next year to replace, say, Malu at left guard. That's not probably the craziest idea in the world. So at 83, if he's your best player on the board, Charles Grant, I wouldn't, completely discount that. So there's some other names we've talked about, some, but not a lot. Azarie Thomas from Florida State.
If you
I
picked
really
up a second, potentially.
could he fall though? Because he ran a 4.6 at his pro day, and yeah, that was at the combine. As he went in like 4.65. I thought he would. I thought he'd have a much better workout than what he did. Maybe there was an injury. I don't know what the case was there with him. I like the tape overall. I like the upside, but could he slip a little bit? Maybe. I'm pushing it, but I'm just trying to think outside the box right now. Safety Makuba from Texas, maybe in the third round. If he falls a little bit, I could see that. So
What about
just
Watts? They were at Notre Dame. What about if you got a second and Watts?
yeah, if you got a second, I think he's going to be a top 50 guy. So it would have to take some sort of major move to get a pretty high pick, I think, to do that. But they showed interest in all the big four safeties of Starks, of Heman Worry, of Watts, and in Makuba.
And we talked about Benjamin Morrison and all the attention the Steelers just gave him. I think that's a guy that you have to maybe entertain in the second round if you got a pick there.
Yeah, I mean, again, that to talk about how you get that pick in the first place, then the conversation might open up. But I don't know where Morrison's going to go because his medicals, I'm sure, are probably all over the map. But Pittsburgh certainly wanting to take a look at him. What about Darian Porter from Iowa State, that avatar corner that Pittsburgh
Box
always seems
checker.
to love? Box, yeah, literally, or every box checked in are what they look for. Study. Day 3, offensive line help. I'm still uncomfortable with the depth right now. I think I'm with you, Dave. They will probably sign a vet after the draft, but I still would mind some extra depth. Tight end. What's behind Darnell Washington and Pat Frymuth right now? It's pretty thin. What do you do with Connor Hayward? They did add Darnell Parham, so maybe there's something there. But could you add, as you mentioned, a Jackson Hawes or somebody like that, Bartholomew from Pitt? In the third round, not a crazy thought there, or not the third round, but the third day.
I do wonder how many running backs. I mean, some people are saying you could see double digit. I think running backs taken in the before 83. Man, you look at these teams that need running backs though, and the fungibility and deep class. Oh, we can get one later to platoon. There's part of me throughout this process. Now I wasn't gutsy enough to do this, so I can't get the full checkered flag to wave after the fact. But I do wonder if a guy maybe like Judkins ends up in a Steeler uniform in the third round somehow, some way.
Yeah, that's not a crazy thought. A deep running back class that pushes down some names. I mean, I don't think that's Where did Judkins go in my, sure to be 100% accurate, 7-round mock
Mhm.
draft? I think he went 60 or early mid 60s or so. So that's not a crazy stretch to believe he could fall to 83, for example. You pick up a pick above that and some sort of a trade down. That's not crazy. I had him 67. I did end up changing my mock. I put him to Cleveland. Judkins did.
Let's see. Any of these other safeties? Sanker checked a lot of boxes, didn't he?
He did, yeah. Let's get a couple Virginia safeties, one Thornhill and Sanker. So there's the Penn State kids. There's Winston Jr. coming off the injury. There's Jalen Reed. And then I mentioned too also Hunter Roller, day 3 guy, and Craig Woodson, who was recruited by Jared Alexander out of Cal, to go to Cal, I should say. So could that connection still hold for him? I wouldn't discount that either. I like Craig Woodson's tape too.
Do you think they'll take an offensive lineman in this draft, even if they pick up picks?
If they pick up picks, the odds go up. Obviously, 6 picks is just tough to do with to do some of those things. But I mean, I think there's a chance on day 3. I considered that in my last mock, and even instead of a Carson Bruner, put it in off. I just couldn't find out what offensive lineman to put in. Just trying to connect, he'd really kind of be throwing mud at the wall, trying to slot a name in there. But would it be more tackle or interior? What kind of lineman are we talking? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you
Might go
could use.
tackle.
Yeah, tackle would probably be my priority, but I really think that they end up after the draft. We see a
Mhm.
veteran come in here. True or false? This team will draft a quarterback at some point during the 2025 NFL draft.
True.
True or false? This team will draft a running back at some point during the 2025 NFL draft.
True.
True or false? This team will draft one wide receiver at least at some point during the NFL draft.
True.
Tight end.
I mean, I didn't have one on my mock. Wouldn't shock me day 3. I'll say false to stick with my mock, but that's pretty close actually.
I'll say false as well too. Offensive lineman. Push comes to
It's
shove.
similar. I mean, I'll say false, but I think it's on the table on day 3. Just
How,
might lose the talent there.
how about a number 4 outside linebacker?
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh could also. I mean, it's just edge rushers late. I think Pittsburgh likes to keep the cupboards full there. It's what Andy Weidel did over in Philadelphia. I'll say true, even though it's not my mock. I'll say true.
I want to say true as well too. Even though I didn't put one in my mock, I think they like a couple of these guys at Baron Sorrell and maybe a couple of others. The SMU kid who's kind of the tweener,
Elijah Roberts.
Elijah Roberts.
In my 7-round mock, which is not made to have a perfect mock for Pittsburgh, but I put Antoine Powell-Ryland, the really bendy, explosive, highly productive, sawed-off pass rusher out of Virginia Tech. He's got negative length, but neither did Nick Herbig, and they still took Herbig.
All right, defensive lineman, true.
Yeah, two
Line,
defensive linemen.
yeah, I'd love it if they could somehow pick up some extra picks and get that done. I would absolutely love it.
Assume they only stay with 6 picks.
It's
True
just,
or false? Double dip on D-line.
I say false.
Me too.
The only way they go inside linebacker if it's a special teams demon, right?
I don't know. I mean, Carson Bruner would probably be considered that, but what is Cole Holcomb? Is he going to make this roster? I don't know. Maybe.
Cornerback. Will they
Would be mad
draft
about
one?
it. Wouldn't kick it out of bed for sure. Is it if they draft a corner? Is it more of an outside guy or a slot guy?
Yeah, that's where it becomes kind of messy.
Give me an answer though.
Outside.
I'll say slot. Go different. Can I ask you a couple of just NFL draft, bigger picture related questions? I want to get your take on these.
All right.
How many quarterbacks get drafted in round 1?
2.
I'll say 3. So your 2 are Cam Ward and Shador?
Yeah.
All right, I'll say a third, at least a third sneaks in there, but I'll say 3 overall. How many running backs?
Who's your third?
That's a better question. Dart. Shock. Dart. I'll say Jackson Dart. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll say just 3 overall. How many running backs drafted round 1? I'm trying to needle you with a question intentionally.
I'm going to say 2.
Hampton and Genty?
Yes.
I'll say 3. I'm going 3 on quarterback, 3 on running back.
You think Henderson is your third?
I do.
Okay.
Who gets drafted first? Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart?
Dart.
Is Tyler Shuck drafted ahead of either of those guys?
Milroe, yes. Dart, no.
Okay, I think I'm going to take Dart over Milroe in my first question. I think Shuck is the. I'm kind of hypocritical in my answers. I don't know. I think Shuck could be the third quarterback taken.
How much in your mind have you played with Louis Riddick talking about Shuck?
I mean,
and the Steelers?
to be honest, after my last edition, not this final version of the mock, the one before, like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, when I was thinking about my final mock, I was planning on putting Shuck at 83. But then there's so much buzz on him going a lot earlier. I like I said earlier, the Saints seem to be the floor at 40. I just don't think there's a way he makes it to 83. So I think there's validity to what Riddick has said. I think they probably like Tyler Shuck, but I don't think he's going to go to 83.
Dart, Shuck, and I already know how you feel about Milroe, so that's not a good one there. Dart, Shuck, and I mean, you're a Will Howard fan. Of those three, which one would you most like to see in a Steelers uniform if you did not spend first round on him?
I mean, if you had, like I said, I haven't sat down and done official quarterback rankings, but I think it would look like based off my grades and what I've watched. Cam Ward 1, Shador still 2, Howard 3, Shuck 4, Dart 5.
So you would, so it would be Howard of those three.
Yes.
I think I'd just like to see Shuck in it to see what he could do.
Just not the body of work there. 7-year guy. Will Howard has thrown more passes than Tyler Shuck. And the age thing is concerning me in a vacuum because quarterbacks can play till they're 40. But did Shuck look better because he was 25 playing against 19-year-olds? And
true.
And why was he in college for 7 years? Well, he broke his collarbone twice. He broke his leg once. I like Tyler Shuck. I put him above Jackson Dart, which, and I had that actually months ago when I did the report on both. I had a higher grade on Shuck, so this is not a last second reading the tea leaves because there's NFL buzz that teams really like Tyler Shuck. I had this way back when, so I wouldn't mind that. I think Howard and Shuck are pretty similar dudes. They're cut from a similar cloth.
Did you go ahead?
I was going to ask you other questions, but if you're going to follow up, that's fine.
No, I was done with the quarterback.
Okay. How many offensive linemen get drafted top 10? A lot of buzz. The early picks will be full of offensive linemen.
Oh, wow.
Will Campbell, I assume, will be 1.
Yeah, Membo, I think, goes. Simmons goes, I
top
think.
10?
Oh, top 10.
Yeah. How many offensive linemen just in the top 10? I'm going to say, I love my threes. Threes, well, I'm going to say 3. Banks, Campbell, Membo.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I like it.
Does the draft start at 5 with Jacksonville? Who do the Jags take at 5, Dave?
I think they probably go Mason Graham.
That's what I have in my mock, but I kind of hated the pick when I made it. I think they go, I'm going to say Tyler Warren.
Okay.
I'm going to say Tyler Warren at 5. Maybe even Tedero McMillan. But I'm going to say Warren at 5. How many first round trades will occur Thursday night, Dave?
3.
You're going 3. I can't go 3 again. I'll say 5. Say 5 trades. And then my last one for you, Dave.
What are the Saints going to do?
What did I have in my mock draft? I think I had pass rusher. Not quarterback. I'm not predicting quarterback on the Saints at 9. They may take them later.
Who's that beat writer that's got the private site? Jeff Duncan? He says unequivocally they won't draft Dart, I think. Or
Dart at 9? Or just Dart in general?
I think he said at 9.
Okay. Well, I think most people didn't think that was going to be the case. But I know him and Nick Underhill, the other Saints guy that I really respect, has been like, they're not taking a quarterback at 9 for a couple weeks now. So I had Jalen Walker.
Maybe that's the one. Maybe that's the beat writer I'm thinking about.
Okay. Yeah, I know Underhill has been on they're not taking a quarterback at 9, but watch out for Tyler Shuck, potential trade up. And that's where I think Shuck goes to the Saints. My last question for you, Dave. Neither of us put him at 21 in our mock draft. And so the question becomes, who drafts Shedeur Sanders?
Oh, Lord. Oh, I'll give you something crazy that's been running around in my head.
Okay.
The Browns get both Travis Hunter and
Ooh.
Shadur Sanders.
So they're trading up, do you think, to get him in the first round? Is that
I don't know
the
how that.
plan?
I don't know how that, or maybe Shadur falls out of the first round. I don't know.
All right.
Uh,
I like it. I like it.
I don't know. I just have had this thought kind of running around in my head that both those guys ended up on the Browns. Will Kirk Cousins be dealt during the draft?
No, if that happens, that's a post-draft thing when the dust settles.
Okay. Props
George
to
Pickens
him
just
for showing. Props to him to showing up for workouts. I'd walk around the building all making people feel uncomfortable.
all right, there you go. My answer on Sanders, my 7-round mock. I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna say the Rams. Wild card, complete shock of the night. Shadur Sanders to the Rams. The Rams move in silence. They even do 30 visits. They're never on the pro day trail as the heir to Matthew Stafford's throne. I think McVay will love Sanders' football IQ and wouldn't be concerned by any of the personality stuff, which I don't think are huge concerns.
Their GM sure didn't want to talk about the quarterback position yesterday.
Yeah, it's never good to throw those things out there as headlines. So they just keep going all these, contract year to year stuff with Stafford, and Stafford's still going to start for them, obviously. But they they almost came, shouldn't say almost, but they were looking to potentially trade Matthew Stafford, which kind of tells you they should probably be in the quarterback market for the future.
The only thing really their GM would really say about the quarterback position was if they draft one, they'll let Matthew Stafford know much the way they did with that Georgia quarterback recently.
Oh, that was what Stetson
Yeah,
Stetson Bennett
yeah.
drafted. Yeah, well, this would be a different conversation on a first round quarterback in Shador Sanders. Yeah, that's what I got. Yeah, the Browns taking Sanders and Hunter would be pretty wild, but I could see it. If the Browns called you at 21 and said we want to trade up, do you entertain it, or you just say we're not gonna help you get Shador Cleveland?
I mean, you got to come off. I mean, they obviously wouldn't have a first left at that point, right? So
Hmm.
you're talking about their early second round. They'd have to come off a haul.
Yeah, I can't help them get Shador, so I'd probably, unless the offer was just like stupid good.
I
But even
mean,
then,
we're talking about the Steelers trading out of the first round, right?
yes, it'd be going down to, was that 33?
Yeah, I don't think they would. I don't think that comes to fruition there. Anything else we're leaving on the table here?
I guess just stick with quarterback. One last question: Jalen Milroe, was he drafted top 50?
Yes.
Man, I have no idea. I put him 33 in my mock to Cleveland. I'll say yes to stick with it, but I really want to know where Jalen Milroe goes.
All right. All right.
All right.
I think we beat this up pretty good. I mean, I don't. We've gone over our mock drafts. We've thought outside the box of kind of what we would like to see happen. Outside of our mocks, we've thrown around what would kind of be surprising. We've talked about the quarterbacks. I guess all that's left now is to talk about the first round pick.
Yeah, be back on either Thursday night / really Friday morning after the pick comes in. The pick will probably get made if they're at 21 at like 10:30, 11. But if not, we'll just do our normal Friday show, 10 a.m. to recap night one and preview day number 2.
All right, we'll have a lot of stuff obviously on the site and have been for a while here. Well over 300 player profiles. For you, those of you that have listened, you know how it works for us on draft day. Busy throughout the whole weekend there. So appreciate everybody listening. Appreciate everybody that's come to the site and commented. And even if it's Dave's mock sucks, why'd you even push the submit button? That's part of all this. So in the meantime, as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow directions that way. We have an iOS app at the Apple Store. Sorry we couldn't get to any emails and all today. I know we got a couple in the box there, but but we knew this was probably going to be a little bit longer show. We've got a lot of stuff prepped to do. Make sure you get to SteelersDepot.com and find that draft contest post as well too, and get yourself entered in there before Thursday night festivities start. Also, Alex, we are 1 year away today from the draft getting underway in Pittsburgh. So the countdown has begun there. So until we meet again to talk about the Steelers' first round draft pick, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.